So there's a lot of health benefits that can come from using bentonite clay, or Montmorillonite clay as some people call it. And people have been using this for thousands of years with a lot of benefits, and it contains a lot of minerals and nutrients and such. And you know, the minerals that we get from the plant and animal foods that we consume, they really come from our soil. That's where they come from, but we can't just eat dirt to get those minerals. But this is a type of basically dirt that we really can consume. So if you're working as a health, fitness, or a wellness professional, you're going to have some clients where this is going to be appropriate to use. But in this video, I also want to share some problems that it can create and help you understand clients that really should not be using it, and for the ones who should, the right way to use it to really get the benefits. Let's jump in.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So one thing to consider is that animals in nature, when clay is available, a lot of them will consume this clay. And animals don't tend to do a lot of stupid stuff like we do. We do a lot of stupid stuff, but that's a good sign that this could be really helpful. And to understand the main benefits of clay, you know, it can contain a lot of nutrients that can be beneficial, but the main benefit is that it has this strong negative charge, so it can almost act like a magnet for toxins in the body. So it doesn't absorb with a B, it adsorbs. So these toxins adsorb to this clay as it moves through the system, so it kind of sticks to it kind of like a magnet, and then the clay moves through the tract and it goes out the back door, so it's carrying these toxins out. Now, there's a lot of people who feel like it can be really beneficial and it can help SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, but we need to understand that most of the symptoms that really come about from SIBO are from the toxins that this bacteria is putting out. And the toxins are what really create a lot of the symptoms that we experience. So if somebody's using clay, then they're pulling a lot of these toxins out. They really create a lot of improvement to the symptom, and then the person's like, I fixed my SIBO. But it doesn't really do anything to really wipe out the bacteria. Those still need to be handled, and we still need to do a lot of things to fix other problems that go along with SIBO. So don't view clay as it's going to be a solution for SIBO, but it could really help improve the symptoms in a big way because it can help get a lot of those toxins out. Now, when I first discovered this clay, I discovered that I had hemochromatosis, which is like basically an iron overload situation where the body, you know, kind of absorbs too much iron, and now all this iron is accumulating, and it can create a lot of inflammation and a whole lot of major troubles. So I found that a lot of people were saying, hey, you can use this clay and it will pull this excess iron out of the body and you'll really improve. So I did this and I saw no improvement to my situation whatsoever. But looking back now, my iron levels were insanely high. And a lot of times when they go that high for that long, the body will store a lot of this excess iron in tissues and other places. And then that creates a lot of inflammation in those areas and creates all this trouble. But I was using this clay and I wasn't seeing any improvement. But so the most successful way that people do this is that they do phlebotomy, or they donate blood, and then the blood takes the iron out, and then you can really reduce your iron levels. But what I understand now is that when you do that, now the body's going to pull this excess iron that is stored in other places back out so that it can be removed or utilized. So I wasn't really seeing an improvement, even though it was probably pulling these iron out, because other stuff that was stored was coming back out, and I was still having the same, you know, numbers on my blood tests and all this kind of stuff. But what really opened my eyes to how effective this can be is that much later, after I got my iron levels under control, and I would regularly go and donate blood, you know, so that I keep them in a good check. But I was using some clay for another purpose. I was making myself a lab rat. I like to do that so that I can talk about things with experience. And as I was using this clay, I was really feeling tired, like I had just donated blood. And then when I went to do my regular blood donation, they were like, oh, well, your iron's too low. You don't even qualify to donate blood. And I was like, well, I've never had that happen before. But then I realized that this clay was pulling a lot of the iron out, and it really was bringing my iron levels down. So I started researching this and I found some studies, and I'll put the links in the description below this video, that showed that this clay really can pull iron out of the body. And there's some people that feel like, well, it could just be restricting the absorption of minerals and iron, and that could be part of the problem. And remember that the clay does have some minerals in it, but what we want to understand that can be important is that it's very alkaline. And so when it goes into the stomach, it can alkalize the stomach and restrict a person's ability to really acidify their food and then break the food down properly so they can get all the minerals out of that. So it could be part of what's going on, but I really view it like it's pulling this iron out, because there's also studies that show that this clay can be very effective at reducing heavy metals in the body, that can be a little bit more effective. But the first thing we want to think about is if a client is having low iron and anemia type issues, we really want to use clay with them. Clay could really magnify that problem for them. So we like to help people kind of fix the low iron issue and correct that so that they would qualify to use this clay. And if you don't know how to do that, we'll put a link in the description below for our video over on our much bigger channel for consumers on why do I have low iron and anemia. And that'll kind of help you understand why that happens. It's really common, and it's also not real difficult to correct when you understand what's actually going on. But if a client had lower iron levels, using clay would really not be the right move. And because of this alkalizing effect on the stomach, if a client's going to be using clay, we really want them to do that away from food, so they still have the ability to acidify that food correctly in their stomach. So just using the clay away from food seems to be very helpful. There's also another type of clay. It's called kaolin clay, Kaolin. And this, a lot of people feel like this is a little bit more neutral. It's not as alkaline. It doesn't seem to be as effective at pulling like metals out, like iron and other types of heavy metal issues. So it may not be as effective, but that could be an option. I haven't used it a lot, so if you've used that with clients, I'd love to hear about that in the comments and what kind of success that you had. But we tend to use the bentonite more just because it seems to be more effective at really pulling these things out of the body. And we want to keep in mind that it contains some minerals, but it also has the ability to pull some minerals out of the body. So if a client has really low blood pressure or low mineral levels, you might want to take steps to improve that before you're using clay anyways. If I have other toxic issues like, food poisoning or something like that, where there's a lot of toxins from that I want to get out of the body, I usually use activated charcoal in that scenario. It's not as effective as the clay at pulling heavy metal type things out of the body, but it can be very effective at getting things out, and it doesn't seem to be as alkaline in the stomach and alkalizing to that stomach. But with the minerals that are in the clay, some people also say, well, there's also aluminum in there, so I'm not going to use that. That's really toxic. But in the clay, it's silica aluminum, which is tightly bound, and it's not going to cause aluminum poisoning for somebody because that silica is going to be very tightly bound to it and help carry it through the system. So I avoid aluminum at all costs. And I feel like it can be very problematic, but in this scenario, because of the way that it's set up and that it moves through the body, I'm okay with using clay, even though it has some aluminum in there. But still, I view this bentonite clay as a temporary solution to a problem to help a client get more toxins out of the body. It's not something that I would want a client using indefinitely just because of all these things that we've talked about. I'm a really big fan of making sure that the stomach can acidify food correctly, and I don't like to do a lot of things that might turn that away. But like if a client had like mold toxicity or some kind of situation where we really had to try to get a lot of toxins or heavy metal type situations out of the body, then it seems to be very beneficial. But I also really like to make sure that a client's main detox pathway is working correctly and that their bile is flowing so the body can detox. And if you're not familiar with that, we'll put a link in the description below on 5 steps to help clients improve bile flow that can be really crucial to make sure they can detox. But when we're looking at should this be beneficial for a client or not, I feel like the iron content that they're dealing with can be a really big driver in deciding whether this is going to be the right step for them or not. Clients that are having that lower iron levels, I really would not want to mess with that and use something that has the ability to either reduce the absorption of that iron or pull more of that iron out of the system. So if you have a client that you're not sure where their iron levels are, you can jump over right now and check out the video over on our bigger consumer channel for how to check iron at home. I can't wait to hear about your results.